the Gautrain will soon have more routes. It means more Gauteng residents will have access to the railway system. The public can comment on the proposed new routes until next month. The proposed extension will add 150 kilometers of rail and another 19 rail stations. For more on this, I'm joined now by the MEC for Transport and Roads, that's Jacob Mamabolo, who joins me in studio. So buoyed and fired up are you, MEC, by this development? You came in studio straight from another field visit that you had within Johannesburg, and I thank you for that. So this extension, we are talking here, it will come in phases. So it's phase one that we're talking about. Just give me an outline. I see a number of routes that I'm familiar with from the west of Joburg going towards Cosmo City, but also ending up connecting with the routes that currently exist.
Let me first extend a greeting to all the viewers and thank you for inviting me. Good afternoon. If you permit me, I would just like to start by confirming that today is an exciting day for us.
Sure.
Because we were launching a state-of-the-art digital platform in the form of an app to allow residents and the people of our province to report on potholes, and then we give them feedback on work we have done. So that's where we're coming from. We launched it in Diepsloot. But with respect to the question relating to Gautrain, yes, Gautrain has got a series of phases, about 5 of them, which will see the rollout of Gautrain across the province. And the first phase definitely from Marlborough going up to, okay, we're going to expand the Sandton station, and of course it will go Rambek into Little Falls, sorry. So that's where it will go to. But I think it's also important to just note that in the coming phases, there's also going to be an expansion into the townships. The first areas we're looking into will be in Soweto. There will be also expansion into Mamelodi, and of course many other parts of the province, to make sure that we have an integrated single space for smart movement in the province. We know what Gautrain can do in terms of commuter experience and comfort and safety. So we are very excited about the fact that we have published a government gazette in which we're consulting stakeholders about the expansion phases that are coming.
So what's in the government gazette that you're consulting about? I imagine that now that you've set the routes in terms of where they will, the areas that they will traverse, you are now talking to issues of land use, right? I see that with effect from the gazetting of this and the processes going forward, you will be watching very closely if anyone who owns land anyway within this path wants to do anything, you know, in as far as land use is concerned. You now have an interest as the MEC of Transport in Gauteng.
The strategic importance and significance of community-wide consultations are essentially about land use, but in that the critical issue is we want to say to the residents of the province, this is what we define as the rail reserve. So the rail reserve will mean that is the land that is now proclaimed and determined to be the place where the train is going to move. So that is going to have implications in terms of land use for various purposes. But at least now we know that we are consulting people, stakeholders, businesses and everybody to say the road is going to move here, and do you object? What's your comment? What's your response? And of course the city of Joburg. So the most important thing is we need to preserve the rail reserve and proclaim it.
So practically, what does that mean, MEC? If I owned land in Cosmo City, which I see is one of the areas, or I don't know, anywhere, Olivedale, where the future track will be. And I wanted to build a mall in that area.
If it's a road reserve means...
Rail reserve.
I mean, the rail reserve, I'm from a road now. The rail reserve essentially means if we proclaim a particular area where you want to build a mall, now that land belongs to us. It belongs to the rail line. That's where it's going to pass. So it will mean you can't, those use rights that you have over the land are definitely going to be affected. Residential, business, anyone, because the rail is going to pass. They have seen with the first phase that people we had to negotiate with people, had to move them, have to relocate. So that's what the rail reserve means, is that that place is preserved and proclaimed.
How difficult a process do you anticipate that? Because I see some of the routes, for example, go even via upmarket suburbs such as Sandhurst in Johannesburg. Yeah. I do expect that you might face some resistance there, here and there.
Well, the good thing, I mean, on the positive side, Gautrain has gone through this when it was doing the one that it has, and it has all the experiences. It was done in the most efficient way, and there has been engagement with communities. So having learned from that, I would like to assure people that we are very much considered. We're not going to uproot people. If that's one of the things that could worry people. This is going to be done in the smartest way possible, but definitely there could be challenges with other people objecting and all that. But Gautrain, I think the team there has been doing an excellent job, and our past experiences are going to come in handy for us.
Why go the route of Gautrain, MEC, when Metro Rail and PRASA is the biggest headache in terms of people movers? The potential is massive, and we know it. When it functioned well, it was a big people mover, connecting people from poorer parts of the province with economic opportunities. Gautrain, on the other hand, is criticized for the volumes are low, MEC.
I just want to, please allow me to just raise a bit of a concern on this issue. That I think over the past years, I've listened, including the Competition Commission, comparing Gautrain in a very negative way with Metro Rail. I think that competition for me shouldn't arise of looking at this as contrasts, as two different things. Modes of transport, firstly, complement and support each other. It is a fact that PRASA trains are currently in a difficulty with the rail line having wiped out. I was privileged to be with the Honorable Minister Fikile Mbalula in the rollout of the new stock, reopening Mabopane corridor. I was also invited to Atteridgeville a corridor when it was opened with very beautiful, comfortable rail. So PRASA is resolving the challenges that it has, and they are also attending to issues of security, and it's a mode of transport. So let me go to Gautrain. I think it is important that we start to look at Gautrain not just as narrowly a mode of transport, coaches. I have got a fundamental problem with that way of looking at Gautrain. Gautrain, yes, it's a mode of public transport, but not only that. If you look at the history of this province, what we call Gauteng, it's a history of the good days of the gold rush, mining, and all that. That is gone and is not coming back. If we didn't have investments in Gautrain, the area that is now called Rosebank, Sandton, Midrand, going all the way even to Centurion, the investments that have happened along the rail line, if it was not Gautrain, this area, most part of it will be ghost town. So I'm trying to say to you, let's look at Gautrain as an investment. Secondly, there are issues of congestion. If those cars that are parked at different stations were to go to the road, we won't be able to move on the road. The third issue is we must look at Gautrain again as one powerful tool to decarbonize the road by moving people to rail. So I'm just saying to you, when we look at it narrowly as a mode of transport, we fall into the issues you are raising.
I get the investment.
But if we look at it in a strategic way, we will get a better sense of Gautrain.
But it is said, MEC, that you as government are subsidizing Gautrain because there's a certain level at which it needs to be performing in as far as its revenues are concerned, and you are guarantors of those revenues. The truth and the extent of that, I can't personally attest to, but it is one of the criticisms that have been raised to say it's underperforming in terms of volumes. The subsidies coming from government are heavy, and instead of supporting municipalities in line with the white paper that just came out on rail, to be able to, run trains on the metro rail platforms and the corridors, you are rushing for this, which is quite costly for you. Talk to me about the subsidies. Will this new extension, for example, continue to be subsidized the way that the current one is?
Can I just attend to two issues that you have raised? The first one is that, let's just take the white paper you are raising.
Yeah.
The white paper is saying, of all modes of public transport everywhere in the country, if we were to have a best practice and benchmark on how to run proper rail, where do we look at? We don't have to take it back and go to the UK, go to Asia. Gautrain is the best model.
Sure.
And for the first time, at the policy level, Gautrain is being appreciated as a good model. The second issue about the subsidy, the guarantee that we have on Gautrain with the company that's running,
agency,
the concessionaire, that's what yes, that is coming to an end in 2026. What that means is the provincial government and government as a whole will sit with an asset that belongs to it. That is very much important. The last point you're raising about whether we're going to subsidize, the transaction for expansion of Gautrain is going to be a triple P model.
Sure.
Triple P will mean multiple sources. One, obviously, is the provincial government. The third one will be loans that will be borrowed by those who will be delivering that. The third one will be equity. That will be brought into that. But there will still be government money that goes into that, just as we subsidize various other modes of public transport, except the taxi industry, which is the biggest. However, I still want to bring you to the point, the issues about the numbers. Globally, there are reports that indicate all modes of transport, starting with airlines and all of them, their numbers have significantly dropped because of the outbreak of COVID-19. Gautrain has been affected by
Lastly,
that.
MEC, I'm almost completely out of time. Why go this route of phase one of the expansion being to the west and north of Johannesburg when, the biggest volumes, many would say, would have been coming from the south? I hear you saying that it will go to townships in future. And I know that Cosmo City is included within the current determination of the phase one. But some are saying the most natural expansion of Gautrain should have been Soweto and perhaps even going all the way to the Vaal first before you start talking about Sandhurst and Randburg and, Olivedale, where people in a lot of instances actually have cars.
Well, let me say to you that I think Gautrain is required across the province. As I said, there are phases. But, one of the most important things is if you just look at the whole of Soweto and some of the key points where people are working, for example, the areas of Sandton, where we are here, there's no direct link mode of transport that link that part to these areas. So Gautrain is going to provide that. That's why I've said to you, in the very early phases after this one, we're going to look at expanding it right into Soweto as the first township, because we want to make sure that we transform the special corridor between this part of key sites of economic activity where people are working with Soweto. And then the Premier has actually directed that Gautrain must, with immediate effect, study do a cost-benefit analysis of going right into Sidibeng, and that process is on. So we are looking at all these issues of high concentration of people where mobility is required and empowering the most underprivileged. So we agree with you that those areas should be prioritized, sure. And that's exactly why we're moving closer to Soweto to bridge the gap between that site and here.
2-3 words. Too soon to talk about timelines when we are likely to see tunnel boring machines on the ground and all this other machinery on the ground, let alone when we are likely to see the first trains running from Little Falls via Cosmo City all the way to Sandton.
Capital outlays in rail take long,
yeah.
And but the exciting part is we're now preserving the road reserve. I mean, we're now preserving the rail network,
yeah.
And that tells you we're on the verge of exactly what we have.
Do you have the money to compensate the people? Because you and your political party and others failed to get the 18th Amendment. Do you have the money to compensate for land?
As I've said to you, we have done this before, and we will be able to manage it within policy,
right.
And in a manner that brings win to win with the people. No one should be threatened by the expansion of Gautrain. It's going to be a win-win situation for everybody.
MEC, thank you so much for coming through. That's MEC Jacob Mamabolo. He is the MEC for Transport and Roads in Gauteng, talking to me about the first phase of the expansion of Gautrain. The rail reserve has been gazetted and the public has the opportunity to comment on it. It is a significant step of what is going to be a very long track towards the next phase of the Gautrain.